I'm gonna go to Mr. and Mrs. Suarez first. Derek's parents were contently sitting together on the couch, watching. The scene of their children and friends gathered together in one place was a rare joy. But when you approached, Mr. Suarez perked up from his peaceful reverie. He squished against the missus, patting the freed spot on the cushion. Mrs. Suarez had to physically support her husband in the invitation by catching his shoulder, otherwise he would have toppled right over into her lap. She laughed over the dramatic infringement on her personal space. Thanks, don't mind if I do. You took the provided seat. It's okay, I can stand. You shook her head politely. You took the provided seat. Thanks. I don't mind if I do. After all the effort they took in order to make that available, you couldn't reject the hospitality. You popped down into the pre-warmed cushion. Yeah, again, what I was saying about Asian hospitality. It would be a little insulting if I didn't take the chair. Mrs. Suarez looked past the man draped over her, as if he was not currently attached at the hip, and made eye contact with you. I hope you have enjoyed your big city vacation, Hark. I definitely did. Glad to hear it. As the pleasantries faded off, the Suarez spouses shared a meaningful glance at each other. The weight of the occasion had been forgotten. Well, while we've got you here, there's something I want to say. Did you know Gregorio and I met at similar age as you and Derek? Technically.
That's true.
That's true. Mrs. Suarez patted her husband's leg unconsciously while the gleam of a storyteller sparkled in her eyes. We attended the same high school at, 14 or so, though we never landed on the other's radar until senior year. He and I shared a class here and there. We did not run in the same social circles or have similar extracurricular pursuits. I almost missed her. Can you believe that? I cannot. What would I have done with my life then? Sometimes I wonder. Perhaps you'd be living in a mansion somewhere in the hills.
Well then.
Is that so? It is a worse fate than I feared. The longtime couple tittered and smiled rosily over one another. Meanwhile, we leaned in closer, ears perked. The topic intrigued you. How had Derek's parents come together? I actually am happy to hear this story. You didn't interrupt in order to ask. You knew with certainty that Mrs. Suarez would explain without prompting, and she did. You see, Hark, Mr. Suarez is a well-meaning man, but when he gets a lot of compliments, he believes them. There's no end to how big his head can get. Derek may have mentioned this to you, but Rio, as he was called in the glory days, was on the football team. The words football team were said with mocking exaggeration, as though she could stop the explanation there. It was obvious where that was going. He and his footballer buddies had quite the egos, and were such a clique. One completely random day in the cafeteria, him and his boys were acting like the gods on earth they thought they were. They talked big and it was all sprah. I spent my life tuning the whole set out, but that time I must have been sitting closer to the noise than normal, or in an unusually petty mood. Whatever the reason, I began to gab with my own friend, intentionally loud enough to be overheard. I said with exaggerated wide-eyed innocence how strange it was that the jocks acted as if they were the greatest men alive. How did they come to such a conclusion when they've seemingly never spoken to a single person outside of their team? What do they know about who's better than anyone else? Folding her arms and bouncing her shoulders, Mrs. Suarez still felt self-satisfaction over that one decades later. The team noticed me then, mostly to give the stink eye, except for one who I could only describe as befuddled. I continued on, pretending I had no idea what was happening at the next table over. We were having plenty of fun on our side of the crowd, until all of my friends went dead quiet. That got me to check again. One of the footballers had come over. He was built like a broad brick, though his face was anything but hardened. Too goofy and almost boyish for that. It was Rio, the linebacker, of course. He leaned over the table and said in his low, somehow booming voice, "What do you think of me? Am I not great to you?" Seriously? Irene and you were suddenly peers, sharing a fluster over the brashness of some strange football man. You snuck a glance at the star of that scene. He was playing as naive as Mrs. Suarez had all those years ago, listening quietly and twiddling his thumbs. Yes, I couldn't believe it. I wasn't expecting any of them to actually care about my opinion. The obvious thought would be that he was trying to intimidate me, make me take it back, but he asked with so much earnestness, I didn't even consider that a possibility. I shot out instantly that I don't like you, I don't know you, but I couldn't say I wouldn't like a man simply because he was on the football team. That's pathetic. Ping-ponging from the shock and indignance, the outpouring of emotions reached its peak. Irene could be worked up no longer. She wasn't really a young lady recounting this for the first time. She knew the end of the tale, and despite being grown, it still put a schoolgirl smile on her face. Well, Mr. Suarez here had such a frown when he heard that. Truthfully, Derek looks like the exact same way when he feels rejected, so you likely understand the position I was in. Someone so bright and bold with a face like that isn't right. It's as if all the joy in the entire world had vanished. That was too much. I looked him square in the face and said I wouldn't give him the time of day for that. But I might be willing to get to know him sometime because he was decently handsome. Of course, that soothed Rio's delicate soul, and he said, "Then we should do that. We are people who should know each other." When he grinned down at me, I knew this was more than I bargained for. I'd better prepare. If he didn't forget about me, I wasn't sure I'd ever have it in me to give up on him. But so far, it's never come to that. And it never will. Rio had been so quiet the whole story, he simply needed to burst in at the end. I cannot remember seeing Irene before that day in the lunchroom. Yet as soon as I did see her, I knew I wanted her to think well of me. If she didn't, I must have been doing wrong. I am thankful you approve of me still, even though I sneak our son's extra treats and cheat with her video games. I can't be a bad man if Irene can look past it. Mr. Suarez hooked a hand around his wife's. You'd bet the grin he had in that moment was the same one Irene had originally fallen for. That's right. You are a good man. No buts or qualifiers went along with the praise. She wholeheartedly expressed approval of her husband. You could see it go straight to Mr. Suarez's ego. Irene didn't take it away from him. The sweethearts were completely enamored and absorbed with one another. Yet Mrs. Suarez managed to pull the focus off the stud of her heart to address you again. It had to be serious. Thank you for listening to my self-indulgent story. What I really wanted to tell you is that I'm relieved Derek found someone who appreciated him for who he is. The weight of those words fell over you. She knew what happened with Derek, and she knew that you were with him regardless of what happened with his career trajectory. As his mother, it meant a great deal to her. Welcome to the family, Hark. Thank you. Thanks, you sniffed. I'm grateful I can keep being here. Honestly, I'm moving here for more than just my own family. I'm gonna say... Honestly, I'm moving here for more than just my own family. I want to be near the whole Suarez family, too. We are flattered. Yes, we are. Hand in hand, the two wonderful people who raised your amazing friend smiled over at you. You got to enjoy a little more quality time with Mr. and Mrs. Suarez. Eventually, they requested a moment with their eldest child, likely to share the same sentimental matters with him. That wasn't something you'd stand in the way of, and made room for the two to have a special parent-to-child chat. I really enjoyed that. These are really cool. I really enjoyed hearing more about how Mr. and Mrs. Suarez's relationship started. You checked on your moms and Mr. Holden. Your parents remained at the dinner table, sipping on their water bottles and pretending to be nonchalant. They sent too many fervent glances between you and Liz to be convincing. Hello, sweetie. Hey, welcome over.
How are you?
What's happening? Hi, I just wanted to see how you were doing. We're great.
How sweet.
Aw, we've been having a wonderful time. I know this trip was for you and Derek, but I'm still grateful Pam and I could be here for a little. Ma wrapped her arm around Mom with a light chuckle. Mom leaned her head gently into her wife, and they both beamed. Time together is more important than time apart. Every bit counts. Well said. I feel the same way. I love you, Moms. I love you all. I'm so glad I'll be coming back. I love you all. Us too, kiddo. Absolutely. Thanks. Mom brought you into the embrace along with Ma. Your parents held you tight for another minute before letting go. Like Derek before them, they didn't intend to monopolize you forever. You left them to their own amazing company and drifted back towards the front of the living room. You joined up with Liz, George, and Nico. George, Nicholas, and Liz were gathered in a corner of the room, fully engrossed in conversation. George's hand batted in the air between the group as Nicholas jerked a finger about. What's up, you three? You were welcomed by the circle with friendly smiles. George folded his arms and switched from one explanation to another. Nicholas was giving something to the effect of a recap to Liz. While talking about the trip, we realized she'd yet to hear about our new interesting acquaintance, so she was being filled in. Apparently, the Xavier person running some bakery used to paint faces at the boardwalk? Small world, There's no end to the odd connections you end up making with people. Yeah, we were getting philosophical. I'm lucky I got to meet each of one of you. I'm looking forward to who else we'll meet in the future. We also connected with that psychic who knew Shiloh. That was weirder. Yeah, it was almost weird as meeting that dancer kid again. You not understanding. We also connected with that psychic who knew Shiloh. That was weirder. Who is Shiloh? I've heard him mentioned, but Shiloh is an old, dear friend of mine. We don't talk much these days, though. Our paths went in different directions. If there's a way for me to mention Shiloh, to name drop Shiloh, I will. Look at that. We're back to sounding so serious. I wanted to put a quick thing about Shiloh just before I forget. So for those of you who saw me go through the wedding DLC with Cove, Shiloh does appear there if you decide to invite him. And what I was told is that his personality at the wedding is random. You could get one of at least 3 different versions of Shiloh, at least, maybe more than that. And some of them are quote-unquote friendlier or meaner than others. And I don't remember which one I got. I think I may have gotten the slightly meaner end of the spectrum, but not maybe the most extreme mean one. But it would have been cooler, I think, if I had gotten the at least most friendly version of Shiloh, based on the fact that I feel like I was trying so hard to cut him some slack and be friends with him, and I would have loved it if it was not random and the type of Shiloh you got was purely based on your previous choices that you made. But oh well. The younger boys stared blank-faced, no more confident in their understanding than they were a minute ago. Your sister was satisfied, snickering into her palm. Besides all that, I have to say I'm surprised Nicholas was the one who reconnected with Xavier. Wouldn't he struggle to recognize them? You know, considering the fact that he was asleep the entire day. I fell asleep after I got my face painted, thanks, and I've been to that boardwalk more than once. I didn't conk out every time. Try a better tease. The dare was meant for Liz. That's what he'd readied himself for and why he spoke with boldness. All right. Unfortunately for Nicholas, however, it was George who took on the challenge. Speaking plainly, with a mischievous twinkle deep in his eyes, you knew it was going to go well for his little brother. The only reason Xavier was able to recognize you out of any of us is because you're still a little kid, just taller. How's that? Nico pouted. That round he had no comeback. However, he did have a new strategy. Nicholas looked to you, his only potential ally, and pleaded like the child he insisted he wasn't. The irony wasn't lost on Nico, and he intentionally played to that. Hark, these 2 meanies are ganging up on me. Leave Nicholas alone, he's a sweet boy. Well, George has a point. I'm glad you haven't changed, Nico. You're the best the way you are. Clearly George and Liz haven't changed either. I'm glad. It's not Nico's fault. He hit on a great style at 6. None of you should change. You're perfect to me. None of you should change. You're perfect to me. Right, I'm perfect. Hark says so. But so are we. And we were teasing you. Is that perfect too? Some people are more perfect than others. You, Liz, I love that. That's great. That played out the best way possible. You, Liz, George, and Nicholas laughed together and continued to chat on the mysteries of life. None of them said this was goodbye. But when the evening wore on and you needed to move away from the sibling group, the CUs shared between you meant more than usual. You'd worked the room, made your rounds, and had a few minutes to yourself. You used it to think and reflect. That was a lot to consider. Life was barreling forward for you. Unfortunately, no inner peace or full understanding of the universe came while you zoned out in a corner. Perhaps as a consolation, you were rewarded with Derek returning to you after finishing his talk with Mr. and Mrs. Suarez. And he had an idea.
So?
Hey, want to go to the balcony, get some fresh air? Same as he did when he first parted ways with you, Derek pointedly left the most crucial part of his motivation and said, "This might be the last time you had a chance to be alone together before you had to go." That sounds nice, Derek. Okay, I thought you weren't going to ask me to go anywhere ever again, you teased. You gave a thumbs up. You nodded somberly. I thought you weren't going to ask me to go anywhere ever again, you teased. Oops. Ooh, oops. Derek flashed back to the desperate moment when the first Ferris wheel ride ended much too soon. He chuckled heartily, face tinged with embarrassment. I did say that, didn't I? It's okay, I won't hold you to it. Thanks, cool. You quietly went to the sliding glass panels at one end of the living room. But progress halted, arms folded. Derek stared at the closed door as an impassable wall. Are you gonna get that for me? You strangled a laugh. That was good, Derek. See? Come on now. This is why Derek's my true OTP. That was good. That was good, Derek. You strangled a laugh. That was something you should have seen coming. It was what you wanted, of course. Derek would end up letting you have it. You accepted the baton in the form of a door handle and opened it. After you.
Thank you.
Why, thanks, Hark. Derek passed on by with his head held high. You followed right after. The event was still alive with small pockets of conversation. You and Derek managed to slip away without notice. As soon as you walked out, a warm evening breeze caressed your body. It carried the sharp scent of the ocean and the delicate perfume of the flowers who made their own home at Derek's place. Derek ignored the one lonely chair on the veranda and rested up against the rail, exactly as he did the first time. On the horizon, the sea gleamed like molten gold encasing a city of silver. You leaned against the railing. You stood near him. You lingered by the door. You stood near him. In that moment, it felt right. The seemingly endless expanse in front of you, with nothing more than a few thin bars between you and it, was a welcome sight. With you both settled in, Derek grinned as if it was any other day, or rather because he couldn't stop smiling at you no matter the circumstances. Hark. Hark, I owe you an apology, or at least an explanation. No, both. You blinked. If there was one thing you could count on, it was Derek Suarez. It was that Derek Suarez wouldn't do you wrong. Not intentionally, anyway. Huh? About what? Well, that's obvious. I had asked you to marry me, in a way, and I almost didn't realize this was the year it was supposed to happen. How inconsiderate can I get? That outburst sapped him of all energy. Derek's shoulders slumped and his tone dropped even lower.
It's been a long time.
We'd been apart for a long time. Looks like I was in denial about how long. Days, weeks, months, and years just went by before I even knew it. It couldn't be the deadline already. I thought, no way, especially with how not grown up I felt and how non-figured out everything was. But it was true. The summer when we were 23 was the year I picked. Is it good or bad timing that this marriage pact plan coincided with my career crisis? I don't know. The rhetorical question lingered. Then a bit of humor returned to Derek's darkening features. Actually, I do. It is for the best that it all happened now. We could work the whole mess out in one. Though that was also part of why I lost sight of things. I don't want you to think it meant nothing because of that.
I swear.
It's not that it didn't matter to me. It mattered so much I couldn't even face it. I had to run away. Derek almost cracked up from the self-imposed pressure. His voice did break. I mentioned some of it already, but asking you to marry me if there was nobody else wasn't one of those wild, impulsive stunts I pull sometimes. I really thought it through. As in, I thought through all the ways I could maybe be with you without daring to just ask you to be with me.
The truth is,
I hinged a lot of hopes on that plan, but it was wishful thinking to see it as a solution. It doesn't work that way. His gaze partnered from yours. He had nothing in particular to take his attention. So Derek was simply staring straight ahead.
you.
The future is looking bright, Hark. I love this city and my family, but honestly, it really was missing something. Coming back to Prism Vista knowing you were gone already was a blow. That's patched up now. I'm so pumped you're going to be moving in. I feel like I can get off a treadmill for the first time in over a decade and go somewhere. Possibly on a walk with my boyfriend. It was thrilled to see Derek bursting with real optimism. Not simply wanting and hoping that would be okay in the face of fears, but having certainty that would be good. You both embraced what was coming next with open arms. That's what I like to hear. I'm looking forward to it. Here's to us, Derek. I think we've earned that. You smiled quietly at him. I think we've earned that. I do too. His heavy arm wrapped around your shoulders. He curled it in, bringing you closer towards him. Then his lips were on your cheek. You giggled. You kissed him back. You hugged him. You turned bashfully. You kissed him back. Derek pulled away for a moment, intending to once again plant a kiss on the side of your face. But you turned your face to catch his lips instead. He liked that one. Derek leaned into you and rubbed your back lovingly. It was lovely and precious and much too short. Hey, your parents told me the story of how you got together. How they got together. Oh yeah, the lunchroom showdown. Pretty funny, huh? My dad told me he loved to remind the rest of the team how Irene may not like footballers, but she did like him. Very cute. You really are a lot like your dad. You're both so earnest. You're so different from your dad. I can't even imagine you with an ego. That is good, but it doesn't beat your marriage pact. I'll say I think these two wouldn't be appropriate. That is good, but it doesn't beat your marriage pact. It's the height of romantic hijinks. Thanks? You know, if I ever have a team again, I'll be sure to tell them how Hark liked me before I made it. Or I can tell my future co-workers. Whoever. Perfect. Yeah, I don't love Derek because he's a beautiful jock. I mean, yeah, that's a perk. That's a perk. But I really did fall in love with his personality, with who he was, and like just his character, and just, you know, that's the important thing. But yeah, I will admit, the fact that he is easy on the eyes is a very good perk. You and your darling boyfriend exchange more sweet smooches, cuddly and adoring to a degree that would certainly be embarrassing to outsiders, if there were any around. And then a swooping sound snatched your attention away from Derek. The sliding door had been opened. The youngest son skipped in, as if invited, and the middle child followed after. George was less cheeky, but equally unrepentant. Hi, Derek. Hi, Hark. Hello. What's going on? Derek flung his head back in a groan. He let go of you with all the begrudging frustration of a teen boy caught canoodling under the bleachers by the teacher. Not again. Every time. There's no privacy anywhere, even in my own house. Hey. Nicholas handled the childish display with unearned airs of maturity. His poise was tall, and he cut an accusing finger through the air. You're the one who invited us over. If you wanted to be alone with Hark, why did you throw a party with several other people? That was a strong point. Worse still for Derek, George had an even better one. Honestly confused by his big brother's reaction, he plainly stated a key consideration. This whole side of the apartment is glass. We could see everything happening without opening the door. Coming over feels more polite to me than watching from the inside. At that, Derek snorted a laugh. George knows what's what. Nicholas had a great point too. But, George, you are my favorite. He was less ashamed of what you were doing than Nicholas was for interrupting it.
I see how it is.
Fine. It made great sense to get together one more time before he left, but I'm regretting being so reasonable now. One of these days we might learn to be more self-centered, and then you'll be sorry.
Sorry.
I kinda doubt that. The part about you ever being selfish, not us being sorry over it. Yeah, sorry, bro. That's not happening. Oh, don't be mad, Derek. I'm happy having George and Nico around. Not right now. Not right now. I love George and Nico to bits, but not right now. No, I'm with Derek. Party's over. Everyone go home, you teased. I forgot how much of a problem this kind of thing was. You left. George, Nicholas, that's not all right. You could have at least knocked. You sighed. You shook your head in amusement. I'm gonna say, George, Nicholas, that's not all right. I'm gonna stand up for Derek. Sorry, I'm standing up for him. George, Nicholas, that's not all right. You could have at least knocked. Sorry, Hark. On a glass sliding door? Come on, Nico. Sorry, Hark. But that couldn't be the end of it. Trouble came in threes. Your own sibling appeared from behind. She leaned against the doorway, leering at the scene. Romancing out in the open while all your siblings and parents were right there? I had no idea the two of you were so indulgent. One rotten apple spoiled the rest. Nicholas and George had originally barged in with the pure intentions of being with you. Now they were snickering over Liz's jabs at your and Derek's expense. I'm a bad influence on him. Sorry we couldn't babysit you the whole time, Liz, you quipped. All we wanted was some peace and quiet, you lamented. You rolled your eyes. You stared silently. This could not get more embarrassing. Sorry we couldn't babysit you the whole time, Liz, you quipped. Oh, of course this happened. Why expect anything else? That's what Derek's wryly lifted brows seemed to express. You know, we were just talking about how self-absorbed I am and how it's not enough in my opinion. From even further in the house, Mr. Suarez waved a hand, popped up over your sister's head. It is okay. We're fine on our own. Enjoy your time together. Your parents were bursting with laughter, ineffectively trying to model that staying quiet would have been less obtrusive than joining the situation.
Really?
Oh, really? Dad. Your troubled estimates were proven to be highly underestimated. It didn't come in 3. It came in as many amounts as physically possible. Mrs. Suarez came to get her husband, clearing a path through Liz, George, and Nicholas.
Excuse me.
Excuse us. She escorted him back to the couch without fuss, but no amount of cordialness on her end could smooth out this 3-ring circus. Derek barely saw the retreating forms of his abashed parents, or your mom's, and Mr. Holden's giggling fit in the distance, or even the set of siblings watching and waiting for what would happen next. His arms were folded and his brain was working. You and he became the center of the universe, and that wouldn't do. In the end, Mr. Reliable himself went for his oldest, most reliable solution to awkward situations. Hey, look over there!
What?
At what? While the others were clearly distracted, distracted by Derek's fantastic ploy, said mastermind slid near to you and whispered intently. Run! You nodded imperceptibly to everyone but Derek. Whose focus was set entirely on seeing that gesture. You both knew what you had to be done. Your hand found his and yours without tearing your eyes on the target. An escape route. Out the front. You dashed through the opening left by Mrs. Suarez, speeding by Liz before she could block the way again. The elders were shocked, the younger ones were shouting, but you didn't stop. Through the gap in the sliding glass past the couches, and out the apartment's entrance, you and Derek ditched the whole party in a blink. Together you flew down the stairs. There was no patience to wait for an elevator. Once on ground level, you exploded through the last set of doors in your path and onto the sidewalk, leaving laughter and joy in your wake. You may have escaped the building, but who knew if they'd follow you out? That wasn't something you'd put past your siblings. The hand gripping yours still held tight. Derek encouraged you along, beaming wide. Let's go. Oh, yay. A nice little splash screen. Yeah. Make sure you keep up. Okay. Let's go, you jokingly mimicked. You grinned at him sweetly. Make sure you keep up. Friends, lovers, partners in crime, formerly conditional fiancés. No matter the circumstances, you and Derek were always a team, and together you were unstoppable. In Derek's bright eyes, you saw reflections of your past. Oh, he's so adorkable. Oh. The first day you met, when he bounded up to you so unafraid, the time he'd much less bravely bolted from a very cross Elizabeth, your grand exit from a different party, one you hadn't been invited to, and the moment you arrived in the Prism City bus station, such a short and long time ago, when he'd come running for you. Each happy moment you experienced became only a memory of what used to be, but that's what life was, and it was okay. Right then, you were running side by side. You wouldn't take it for granted. You wouldn't waste the chance. Instead, you would keep going for as long as your feet could carry you. As it should be. You and Derek took another step forward, and then another. Forward and forward, down the glistening city street, and towards the rest of your lives. Oh, thank you for beginning a life here. Oh, look at that. You can come back again always. Oh, that's so beautiful. The end. Oh, my heart. My heart. Oh, do I get anything new from the gallery? Do I get anything from the Derek gallery? Yay! Derek 3. Oh. 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 I love that. I love that. We're just gonna end it on here. So. Oh. Yeah. Bravo. Bravo. I absolutely love that. Absolutely love that. I can get very nitpicky about it, and I have, and I'll get a little nitpicky about it. So, I mean, it wasn't perfect, but for what it was, superb job. Like, developers, superb job. Like, this was a DLC. This was something extra. So, like, it's hard for me to, like, really, critique it that much, because this is extra content. When the developers made this game, it was mainly, geared towards focusing on Cove as the main, like, interest, whether it's romantically, platonically, or indifferent. He is the main character, and there's all these other side characters, Derek being one of them. But I am so grateful and happy that the developers of this game did anticipate that Derek would be a really popular character, popular enough that it would warrant having his own DLC. And same thing for Baxter. Like, Baxter, of course, didn't have the same effect on me, but I am excited that they're going to be making a Baxter DLC for it. I'm probably not going to play it, not because I don't like Baxter, but just because there's other games that I'm really, interested in playing, and I just don't have the time to play every single aspect of every single game that I play. So if I'm going to play a game, I better be really passionate about it. And Derek definitely was 100% someone that I was very passionate about, and definitely wanted to experience his DLC. So I really enjoyed that a lot. I'll start with my critiques. So yes, I kind of expressed a little bit of frustration near the end. I was like, come on. Let me get to it already. Obviously, in a perfect world, in a perfect world, I would want as much, like, I would have wanted more Derek time, just more Derek time in general, and I would have loved to have had more time with Derek, just being boyfriends with him or being in a relationship with him, because we certainly got that with Cove. Now again, like, yeah, of course we naturally got it with Cove because that was like the main focus of the game. So it stands to reason why we didn't get that much in depth with Derek. So again, I'm just being purely nitpicky. If people wanted to buy the Derek DLC, many of them are buying it because they wanted to romance Derek. Not all, obviously, but many of them I'm sure would. And therefore, I thought they could have given us more of that. They could have given us more alone time with Derek than we got, more intimate time with Derek than we got. I'm not saying that we had to go through the route where he would like actually fully proposed and, you know, propose to us to see if, you know, we would become engaged. But I would have loved that, obviously. I would love for us to have a Derek wedding DLC, but I don't at all begrudge the developers not being able to spend the time on that. So it's okay for me to just headcanon that a lot of what happened in the Cove wedding DLC would happen between me and Derek, like my character's Derek, if they were to make a Derek DLC. So I'm just gonna headcanon what our relationship would be like, which is the beauty of this game, is that they leave this ending in such a way where there is hope and that there's still open-endedness, and it can really go whatever way you want. Maybe you do end up being completely together with Derek as soulmates and you get married and have the kids in the picket fence and he becomes like the soccer star, you know, all that good stuff. And maybe you end up not, but still had a very meaningful relationship that set you up for who you ultimately ended up being with, if at all. So, yeah, I think that was like my biggest critique, is like, I felt like there are times when the games were stringing us along, and, you know, don't get me wrong, the payoff was fantastic. Once we actually got to the Ferris wheel the second time, everything from that point forward, I was like, okay, here's the payoff. The payoff was great. Was it worth the wait to get it? Ultimately, yes. I'll say ultimately, yes. But I still felt like they could have strung us along less. I still felt like they could have teased us less. Having some teasing is fine, and like being able to build up to a payoff is fine, and more than fine. It's great. I love when you like build up to a payoff. I just felt like they might have done it a little bit too much. They could have given us a little bit more than we did in terms of not stringing us along. So that's my only big major nitpick. But other than that, I really like how they handled the moments in step 2. You know, the moments in step 2 were really fascinating, really fun. The version of the soiree, of course, was great. The boardwalk stuff was great. And in general, I really like learning about his family and the dynamics. I was very invested in his relationship with George and Nicholas, and Nicholas's relationship with George, like the three of their relationship. And I really loved the big blow up at the end, because it really did build up to that. And again, that was like a big payoff, was having those brothers figure out these issues amongst them, especially between George and Nicholas. So I definitely value that a lot. It was a very pleasant surprise in this DLC. Like, I figured that the DLC wasn't just going to be all about Derek, and that we were going to, you know, spend some time with his family. So it was really neat to have that, not only with his brothers, but also his parents. It was really cool how they were able to integrate Liz and our parents and Mr. Holden and Cove too, you know, throughout the Derek DLC content. I really loved the sheer length. I mean, I was pleasantly surprised by how long the step 4, I guess, epilogue was, because this is about as long, if not longer, than the Cove Wedding DLC. And I thought the Cove Wedding DLC was a lot of content, was pretty darn long. So the fact that I it either felt like or actually was longer than the Cove Wedding DLC was really something I didn't expect, and I really liked a lot. And on top of that, we still had all of the moments and all the small updates from Step 2. So I'm very grateful for that. And so, yeah, I thought that Derek is just such a fun character and a really great person to have a relationship with, whether it's as a friend or a romance. Obviously, all of you Cove fans, if Cove is your one true pairing, fantastic. But I always said that I do like Cove a lot, but Derek is the one, like, for my character. For my character, Derek is the one. And this just completely confirmed it. Every single thing, every single time we got to spend with him and just watch him interact with other characters, it just made me more attached to him even more, which felt impossible because I was already like a huge fan of his from the beginning, you know, through the rest of the non-Derek DLC content. So yeah, I feel like I've said everything else that I wanted. How did you all think they did, or the developers did with the Derek DLC? Are you excited and interested for the Baxter DLC that's going to be coming out? Which person are you? Are you like the biggest fan of? Are you more of a Cove fan? Are you more of a Derek fan? Are you more of a Baxter fan? Maybe it's not fair to ask that until the Baxter DLC is out and you actually like get a chance to get to know him more and spend time with him more, or I don't know. But yeah, the whole time this is such an enjoyable ride. I did end up taking a break from playing Hogwarts Legacy specifically to play the Derek DLC because it was just that enjoyable and that much fun, and I just wanted to know what happened next. I wanted to know like what was next in our times with Derek. So yeah, overall, love it, amazing, super well done. There were, you know, a few grammatical issues, like the proofreaders of this DLC probably could have caught a few more things. That didn't like completely spoil the experience of my game whatsoever. I'm just, again, very nitpicky. And then the other nitpicky thing is we could have probably been strung along less. We could have probably have given more time with Derek intimately as boyfriends, instead of waiting till the very end, you know, till the very end of that blog. But you know what? I am more than happy and more than satisfied with what we ended up getting. So thank you all, everyone, so much for watching my Let's Play. I'm really looking forward to playing the sequel to this game. I forgot what it was called, but it is, you know, not the Baxter DLCs, but the sequel to Our Life Beginnings and Always. So definitely look out to see if I do a Let's Play on that. I most likely will. Hopefully there'll be a character there that I end up just as attached to as I am with Derek that I can possibly romance. But yeah, I feel like of all of the characters that I have romanced in a graphic novel, Derek is probably the best, my favorite one, the best one, or my favorite one, or I think the most compatible to me in real life if I actually was a person in that universe, or I actually was my alter ego character in that universe. I think Derek is the one that was the most my type, and the one that I most realistically would ultimately want to get married to and have a relationship with and have a life with. And that says a lot, because there are a lot of great people that I romanced through the other Let's Plays and the other like graphic novel Let's Plays. But I can't think of any yet. Who quite beats Derek in like he's just everything about him is just perfect, like perfect relationship wise, in terms of compatibility with me if I was in that universe. So, awesome job, awesome character, awesome writing. Thank you very much for watching, everyone, and until next time, love yourselves and love Derek Suarez Angel. Bye.